So there's a misconception that if you're single, you are incomplete, perhaps damaged, salvaged, and you won't be happy until you find your one. And that is not true. That is bullshit. It is a message that has been fed to us by media and advertising. The truth is, when you're single, you have the richest soil for growth. That's why I created this podcast. And unlike other podcasts, this one is host-driven, not guest-driven. That means I will be rotating health and wellness experts 3 times a week to give you the giant box of wellness crayons, not just the primary colors, so you can start building a meaningful life. It's time to give singlehood a cape.
Hi John, this is Kath, and this is my singlehood story. So I've been single for more than 3 years, and before that, I was in a 4-year relationship which was very toxic and codependent. It brought out the worst in me, and I found it very difficult to break free from that person. I was even in denial for 6 months. I didn't want to acknowledge just how bad the relationship was and how it was affecting my emotional, my mental, and my spiritual health. So when I finally did, I started asking myself questions like, what can I do so I don't attract the same kind of person or relationship next time? And that got me into seeking help from coaches, mentors, teachers. So I started doing life coaching, and I discovered energy healing. So I got into that. I was able to establish a meditation practice that worked for me, and even got certified in yin yoga and meditation. So the last 3 years has been about diving deeper into my spirituality, being intentional about self-work, and cultivating self-awareness so I can really see the patterns that I keep repeating and empower myself so I don't make the same choices, so I can make better choices in the future. And because of, doing all these things like meditation, yoga, Reiki, I realized that toxic relationship happened because I had the same toxic traits as my ex-partner. And as hard as it was to admit to myself, that changed everything, that changed my perspective. And for sure, I didn't want another toxic relationship. So I had to learn how to change my focus from external validation, like focusing on whoever I was with, and changing that into introspection, inward looking. And before, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Like during my first session with my life coach, she had this big mirror at her studio, and we were doing an exercise where she asked me to look at myself in the mirror. Like I couldn't even directly look at myself in the eye because there was a lot of shame there. I found it hard to forgive myself for getting myself into that kind of relationship. And, forgiveness, self-forgiveness, self-love, self-awareness, all these things, it's a journey. It's messy. It's not linear. Some days are easier than others. But, the gift of that is I've learned how to sit with my emotions and not try to distract myself from them, because the more that I run away from them, the harder it is to heal, if that makes sense. So in the last 3 years, my journey has really been about being my own best friend. And I recently moved into my own place, so now I live alone. And if this happened earlier, I don't think it would have worked out between me and myself. Like, seriously, I wouldn't be able to take the fact that I'm alone most of the time. Like, I would find a way to run away from myself. And doing all these self discovery, self awareness work, it also helped me look back at my first relationship, which lasted 7 years. So it took me a decade to actually see that from an objective point of view. Like, before, I would only focus on what went wrong, what he did wrong. But now I'm able to actually see the flip side of that. Like, what actually worked? What made it last 7 years? And answering those questions also helped me make decisions in the present. Like, that relationship worked because we were friends first. So that taught me that it's better for me to be in a relationship with someone whom I'm friends with first. And that's the gift of that. So right now, I'm not really dating anyone. I tried going on this dating app. Didn't really like it. I didn't like the energy that it was bringing into my life. I didn't like the urgency of having to reply within 24 hours. I didn't like, the way that, profiles were made, as if you could actually sum up a person with just a few pictures and a few sentences. So I just thought that I could try being on there out of curiosity and see how it made me feel. And it felt out of alignment with who I am. So I'm deleting it this week. Maybe even after I finish this audio recording. But yeah, so among the things that my singlehood journey has taught me is that if it's not in alignment, then it's not. Just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean I have to do it also. I had to learn how to stop myself from accepting things even though I felt like it wasn't for me. And I'm still in that journey. I'm still a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist. But looking back from who I was 3 years ago, 10 years ago, I've come so far, and I'm more empowered to make intentional decisions about dating and relationships. And that's it. Thank you.
Hello, this is Jennifer. I'm 30 years old. I live in Los Angeles, California. I was born and raised here. I am first generation Latina to hold a master's degree in psychology. I've been single for a long time. And a little bit about that is because it's been really tough, trying to get the label. And I also didn't want to settle for less. And I also see, the men that came to my life. They were broken, and I just feel like they never gave me the label. And I also didn't know how to date these men, these individuals, just because through my process as my early, in my 20s, and even as a teenager, I would always kind of run away from, even when I liked a boy, or I would always be like, I would tell my friends and be like, hey, I like this guy, but I would get really, really shy about that. But I've been single for a very long time, and now I'm kind of like, I'm 30. I need to step out of my shell and just like see what's out there. But I'm now currently dating, and I'm on the dating apps. And this year I took a chance on getting out of my comfort zone and going on dates. And I feel like I'm on a phase 2 in my dating life right now, just because I feel like dating in my phase 1 was kind of like the introduction, and it was really tiring. I feel like emotionally tiring is what I mean. It's like a lot of like getting to know you, a lot of first time dates, but I think I didn't make it to the second dates, just because I feel like I feel like it wasn't even me. At some point I felt like it was me, but it wasn't. Looking back at it, I felt like I was I was attracting men from my past again, just because I feel like now, I took that time off to actually, like, what, this is what I need to work on. Like, what is my plan here? Like, what is my plan for myself? Like, so that I can get a better outcome. And then, what else? Yeah, because like I was telling you, in the past, I feel like I was dealing with a lot of situationships. I feel like I had 2 situationships. And I've never brought anybody home. None of my parents don't know, somebody that's, oh, here's my boyfriend. Like, no, just because I feel like when I do bring someone home, it's because this is serious, and this is something that, he's mature, and I'm immature. I'm mature, and I was about to say mature. So, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I was never that individual that the family can talk about, like, oh, look at her, like, she's dating this guy now, like, oh, she's dating that one, or I don't know. I just felt like I just wanted to be different. I didn't want to be like the traditional of what we see on TVs, or what we see our elder cousins going through. So anyhow, yeah. So I was dealing, also another thing that I felt like my other situationships is that in the beginning stages, I just felt like it was really hard for me to be even vulnerable, even to put my feelings into words. And when I did that, I had a lot of insecurity as well. And I just feel like these men had insecurities, and I just felt like I was being emotionally used by them. Just because they still didn't, they don't know what they want still, and they want you, but they're just like straining you along. And then it took me a while to figure out these things, just because I was just so goal oriented. I was finishing school. That's one of my priorities things, but I still wanted a chance of love, and I've never been in love because I've never been vulnerable. And, I had to do a genogram. And then the genogram, I started seeing all of these relationship patterns that my extended family. And one thing that caught my attention was that, my mom would be like, oh, date these men, by their race. And I'll be like, what? Like, but you've never even dated a man outside your culture, or even in my family, they would always try to give me advice or tell me this or tell me, date this type of men, because those are the men that they wish they had dated for better outcome, I guess, But yeah, another thing, also navigating and identifying my worth, value, goals, purpose, and what I want, and just putting my feelings into words is something that, I've struggled in the past. And now dating is like, okay, now everything that I've learned, I'm putting that in there. And dating phase 2 is kind of like, it's a little bit more fun. I feel like I'm being myself more, and I'm actually seeing the red flags, and also going on dates is it's still like a little struggle with me, because sometimes I don't want to go put myself out there, just because I'm just like, oh, is this gonna, like, what is this gonna happen, like, like, is it gonna happen, like the past keeps coming, but I try to not focus on that as much, and just remember myself. What else? I think just being present is what I'm learning, also to be in the present, having fun with them, learning how to ask the questions, and not just like those, basic norm questions like, oh, what's your favorite color? What do you do this? It's just like, just keep it very interesting. I feel like, not getting so deep, but just like learning what kind of questions I should ask. That's one of the things that, and remembering them, because sometimes I get brain farts. I'll be like, oh my God, I'm too much in my head. So let me see. One thing I do notice in the dating apps is that, and this is very general, but just my experience, it's like a lot of people have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and that kind of makes it really hard. And that's when the questions come up of like, what kind of questions, do I, I don't want to challenge, but I also want to get into like, I want to get somewhere with this, I'm dating with a purpose. So I feel like, the chemistry and just going back and forth, and not overthinking things through text, or, because we're behind the phone. So sometimes, I want that connection, like, in not just only online, but also like in person. And let's see. Yeah, I talked about, and then I'm not gonna say, yeah, one thing is like dating, it's hard. I don't think it's easy. I don't even know if somebody says it's easy, like, please tell me what's easy, because I just feel like there's like ups and downs of it. Especially as a, clinical, going into my field. I'm a clinical psychologist, I'm about to be a registered marriage and family therapist. And then, that's kind of hard. So it's just like, I'm learning how to navigate this into, I'm never assessing somebody, but, analyzing them, not assessing them, sorry, analyzing them. But I get a lot of, like, they have a lot of biases, and then I'll just be like, oh no, we're not like that. We want to come from a place where we turn off our brains, One One thing I've learned in the past as well is that in order for me to date as well, it's like I've learned how to heal myself and how to put my needs and wants and be a priority and not let, like lead as well. Not always have, let the guy lead into the conversation, but also like let my personality pop out. And also I'm kind of tired of dating like the local boys, I'm still in the survival mode of singlehood, and it's really hard. I'm not going to sit here and be easy, but I love the challenge, because I feel like I am learning to be vulnerable, to get out there, my social skills, have a conversation, look somebody in the eye, be present in the experience, what are they all about? Like, based on, the planning that takes, like, do they really make an effort? What are my red flags? What are my green flags? Also, how I'm thriving in singlehood. I feel like I'm doing pretty good. Sometimes I have to remind myself that, there might be some rejection, because, but then again, I have to remind myself, like, I am not for everybody, and not everybody's for me. And I've also rejected some people in the who are single, but I still went on the date just because I'm like, damn, I agreed to go on this, like this Thursday I have a date, and I went, he bought the tickets already, and I'm over here like, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to just going to go, have fun, be myself, give him the 100% me. And if there's chemistry, if there's not, like, just be honest with yourself, but be honest with yourself and be honest with him. And, and I don't know, I'm looking at options. I'm learning how, also networking. What else? I'm just looking at it like in a way where it's like, I need more time on that one. I don't know how long you want this, but I feel like I am in a good example, just because I feel like I've been through a lot in my life, and I just feel like I've been breaking a lot of barriers, and I just feel like, damn, like, like, I really want to get to know somebody through just spending time with them, and then not really get involved sexually with them right off the bat, just to get to know them for who they are, and see where this goes. But let me know if you guys need any more information. But I think I will be a good source for your podcast. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Alyssa. I am based in Salt Lake City, Utah at the moment. Wanted to send in just a singlehood story, as you had requested. I have been in singledom, quotes, singlehood since July of 2019. I had come out of about a 6-year-long relationship that essentially broke me down to my knees, and I was plagued with anxiety. I remember hearing this specific music one afternoon, and it turned out to be very much a meditative style of music, and it brought me to the floor, where I was just kind of instantly doing some sort of a meditation. And at the time, I didn't even know I was doing it. but it was something I began to feel relief in. And so I ran towards learning more about meditation. And quite frankly, I became obsessed with it because I was in such a stressful job and I was in so much heartbreak that this was the pause and the relief. Like, it was like instant relief when I would go into these states. And so that really helped me through, 2020 into 2021. I unfortunately was using alcohol as a numbing agent through most of that time. Even though I had this, this really beautiful practice I had learned with meditation, I also was using and abusing alcohol to combat, the pain and the loss. And just a lot of the really unhealthy beliefs that I had created from my relationships. I lost my mother in 2021, which led to me furthering my addiction into drinking. And that year I was in a very bad accident in which I nearly lost my life due to the fire the car caught fire. So as you can imagine, that's a rock bottom, right? And that was 2 years after I had become single. The point here is that I wasn't dealing with anything. But in the back of all of this chaos, there was my meditation practice. And it always stayed with me. In fact, in 2020, I was certified to become a meditation teacher. And I really believed that after my accident, when I became sober and I had to face the loss of everything because of that accident and because of my choices, I really relied upon my meditation practices. And I decided after my accident that not only was I going to go without drinking, but also that I was no longer going to be inviting anyone into my space, either unconsciously or consciously, that I knew wasn't going to be good for me. I had, I really, as I mentioned, lost most of my life in losing where I stayed. I was between jobs. I moved into my sister's place for about 4 months. I was waiting for my new place to be ready for move-in. It was under construction at that time. And when I moved in with her, I was probably at my lowest. I had no money. I had no home. I had no car. I had just a really bruised up internal world as well. And once I surrendered to that, once I surrendered to the fact that I had nothing, I had no power, I just told myself to do what I could do. And that was to just apply for jobs. It was to just sit with myself in a sober state in meditation. It was to journal. It was to try to move past all of the pains from the previous few years. And not even move past the pain, but move through the pain very consciously. And I ended up, within weeks, I was offered just the most incredible opportunity with Business Insider. I do the technical recruiting for them now, and I've been with them for this last year and a half. It's been now. And once that income started to come in, of course, we all know that makes such a difference. That was able to give me the opportunity to begin planning for my future again, to give me, stability where I wasn't depending on anyone else. And I, again, just continued to work on that internal world of mine and remained completely focused on that. And December of last year, I moved into my dream place downtown Salt Lake City. It was just literally a dream moving in. It was gorgeous. I didn't need a car. I could walk everywhere I needed to go, including the meditation studio that I've been teaching at for almost 3 years now. No, I take that back. Almost 2 years. Anyway, I I just continue to keep my head down. I continue to do that internal work. And by spring, I felt this enormous, I don't even know what the word is, just this beauty that was coming from me, from the within, on the inside, and just such a peace that I have not ever had, even in my childhood, just this peace and joy, sheer joy of, not being attached to anyone or anything, and thriving in my independence and just falling in love with myself. And it got to a point where I preferred being alone, and have since. There really hasn't been anyone of interest specifically to me. So that's made it easy for me to not date. I haven't put myself out there on any dating apps or anything. I just haven't felt ready. And when I say that, I think I'm not closed off if there was someone to come in. It's more that I want to make sure that I have a really healthy, strong relationship with myself, in the love I have for myself, in my ability to not move back into those drinking addiction and behaviors and those type of patterns. And just continuing to learn who I am and explore who I am has just been such a gift. I really think, I know in my core that this is something I wish more people did get to experience. Obviously, the first few years of that nearly killed me. It was torment. It was torture. It was the hardest thing I think I've ever gone through, was having to be by myself, sit by myself. And that's why I moved into the addictive behaviors, into the alcoholism, and numbed out so much. I lost my brother to suicide this summer. He and I were quite close. And his circumstances weren't great. His deck of cards were not good. At least the hand he was playing wasn't good. And I wish that maybe he could have had the opportunities that I've had to get to that really dark place, but see that there's hope and opportunity, and that you independently can make miracles happen if you really just surrender and have faith and get to know yourself. I don't know where life will take me. I don't know if I'll at one point end up again where I was with no one or where to go. I mean, obviously I had this gorgeous support system of my family, but I just think that being single and having this opportunity to be independent 100% on my own is truly the best gift I have received in this lifetime. And I have been amazed time and time and time again at the goodness that I have experienced in my singledom. And we are just ingrained, we are programmed, we are led from the moment we arrive in this world that we have to have a partner. And we're not a person or a whole human unless we have someone with us. And I have experienced the opposite, and I know that came from unhealthy places. And so again, my vow to myself was, I will love myself, I will explore my pains, I will explore what I need to not fix, but I need to explore. That didn't make sense. I need to explore the things that I feel I'm lacking and find ways that I can fill that within myself. And if I can do that, I think I can then bring in healthy relationships, and I won't have to move back into patterns. And if I do, because I know that relationships do expose that rawness within us, I know that I will be able to see those flags, so see those patterns within myself and have the strength to say this isn't working for me. And I know that I would have that strength because I've experienced my strength in the most difficult of times in the last few years in my solitude. So if that can be a story of hope for anyone or anyone that is nervous, I'm telling you, let me tell you something. If I could gift anyone an experience, it would to have independence, solitude, and to receive the gift that they can do this entire life on their own, in happiness, in joy, and be healed so that when we do go into partnership, we don't have to go into damaged relationships or create more damage in new relationships. Anyway, that's my story. I'm here if you're interested in chatting more. I also just really want to express that my meditation practice and learning breath work, obviously moving away from the substance abuse and getting to know myself is what got me here. And those are, if I could give a blueprint to a successful story in coming out of hardship and coming out of heartbreak, those would be the things that I would prescribe immediately. Get to know you. Get to love you. Get to enjoy you. It is just the most gorgeous experience. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening.
Hello, my name is Michelle, and this is my singlehood story, which I consider to be a work in progress. I've been single now for 2 years. I was in a marriage for a long time. I live abroad because my ex was from here. I'm 52 years old, and I've known him for almost 30 years, and I was married to him for over 20 years, or I was with him for over 20 years. And we went through an incredibly devastating separation in 2020 at the height of COVID, which was very bad where we live, and we had incredibly strict lockdowns and restrictions here. So it was horrible timing because all of the advice that you'd normally be given during a divorce, I couldn't follow up on. I couldn't even leave my house to take a walk. I needed a permission slip to go to the grocery. Permission slip from the police to go to the grocery. So I definitely wasn't out, meeting girlfriends for cocktails or commiserating. And I was alone in the house with my 2 children, who at the time were 8 and 12. Because my ex, even though we were separating, so I can't cry infidelity or anything. We were already in the process of separating. We were already doing mediation before COVID hit. He somehow met someone, and I say somehow because, again, we were locked down. And he left the house from one day to the next. He kind of lost his mind, had a midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. And, our children knew we were separating, but we had told them we would be staying in the same apartment for now because, also because of COVID, but because we live in a very expensive city. And that's just the way it had to go. So we have 2 levels, and he was going to live downstairs. I was going to live upstairs, and it was going to be very fluid. And the kids, had it in mind that we'd be in the same house, and then suddenly he left. So it was very devastating, very traumatizing. And for the first year, I just kept my head down. I'm a freelancer. It was during, again, a pandemic. I don't do an essential job. I'm more of a creative person. So I was just trying to keep my head above water, keep food on the table, pay my mortgage, while, shepherding my kids through virtual learning and drying their tears because they were just so devastated over everything, not just being locked in the house and not being able to go anywhere or see their friends or go to school, but also because their parents were separating and their dad had left suddenly. So for a year, it was just survive. I was a machine. I did what I had to do. I went all day long. And then at night, I would just cry and cry and cry because it was the only quiet time. 1 year was like that. So I'd say my singlehood story really, it's only been about a year of, me being able to kind of regroup and think about myself. And I went in therapy online because we couldn't go anywhere, and my kids are in therapy as well. So I've just been working on myself, thinking about, my relationship. I thought my relationship was one thing, and it turned out to, I guess I would say it's a person I knew for a long time, and he kind of turned out to be someone I felt like I didn't know. So just how did I end up like that? And was it always like that? And, just going through things in my mind and thinking about who I am now and getting back in touch with myself. And one of the things I found really hard, aside from on, the dating apps and things like that, which I'll get into, but just after the world opened back up, so many people were reluctant to go back out in the world. I mean, they hadn't gone through divorces or anything, but people were just, still emotionally all rattled. Maybe they'd lost, loved ones or gotten COVID themselves, and everybody was going through something. So I was working really hard to rekindle friendships and get back out in the world, even though what I felt like doing when my kids were with their dad, for example, was just getting in bed and putting the covers over my head. I pushed myself to get out there, and it was hard. I felt like I was getting not so much rejected, but people are busy. People at this time of life are busy. We're all, we're busy with our kids, with our maybe aging parents or whatever it is, and people have jobs, and it's just hard to get together with people a lot of times. So was working really hard on that. And at one point I told my therapist, I feel like I'm planting all of these seeds and I'm working so hard and I'm priming the ground and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, and nothing is coming up. And she told me something that gave me comfort, which is, maybe you're planting tomato seeds in January and you have to wait until the spring. And I think I'm just now maybe coming into the spring. I mean, I don't see all of these great things flourishing, but I feel there are glimmers of hope on the horizon. Some of my efforts have paid off. Not all of the efforts I made have paid off, but some of them are, showing some promise. As for dating, I would say I approached the dating apps, I don't want to say with enthusiasm, but the last time I was single, I was in my late 20s. So I was living that hipster lifestyle in Brooklyn. I was fresh-faced. I had a cool job. I was, 15 pounds lighter. And I don't know. I remember dating as being fun. And so this was like a slap in the face to get on these dating apps. And I just feel like in this age range, I feel like my profile is pretty positive. I mean, it's definitely not negative. It's positive/neutral or and there's so much negativity. It's just people at this time of life, they've been knocked down. They've gone through a divorce. Maybe they've lost their parents. Maybe they're in a bitter custody battle, or their kids hate them, or I don't know, just there's a lot of negativity even in the profiles. You can see things like, if you're looking for an ATM machine, swipe left. It's just this bitterness. But aside from that, there's the ghosting, there's the love, and I'm a skeptical person. So you can love bomb me all day long, and I'm not going to start living in a fantasy world. But if someone approaches me with you seem so great and I can't wait to meet you and when can we meet up? And then when it's time to meet up, they disappear. I just find the apps really negative, and there are a lot of behaviors that are ghosting is just the norm there. I mean, you decide someone's boring and you just never write them back again or whatever. And there are a lot of behaviors that are the norm there that aren't the norm in real life. So I've taken a break from the apps, because I'm just really working on myself, and eventually I would like to have a partner. I think I don't know that I want to get remarried, or now my kids are 10 and 14, and I don't want to move anybody into the house, or my ex is still in this very serious relationship, and so when the kids are with him, they're always with the girlfriend, and that's been like a little bumpy. And from my side, I don't want to bring anything in like that now. I can't say in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. So that's my singlehood story, and I'm just now hitting a stride, I feel, where singlehood feels like, I don't want to say a gift, that sounds like a cliche, but it's time to think about myself, work on myself. I don't have to answer to anybody else, and it's not just this like loneliness, and especially when your partner, gets into this very serious, your ex-partner, it makes you think like, wow, well, he's having all this fun, and I'm here with the kid, our kids. And I'm not in that mode anymore. I'm really looking at it as a time to work on myself and try to be positive and have hope for the future. So that's my story, and I wish all the best to everyone else out there on a similar journey.
Kia ora, my name's Adrienne Buckingham. I'm Canadian born, but I'm living in New Zealand. I left my marriage at the end of 2019. There was something wrong with our marriage, and we couldn't find a way to talk about it or figure out what that was. So I found myself living alone, suddenly without my kids half the time, and in a new career. And then the pandemic hit, and this country went into a very severe lockdown, and I was living outside of town, and I didn't see anyone I knew other than my children for 8 weeks. So that gave me a lot of time to sit alone, or sit with my children. And that was a real test about how life had gone, what parts of my choices were justified or not, what my role was in anything that happened. I tried to go back. We tried to do that, but things happen the way they happen. Now, I'm getting to a place where, my marriage was really wrapped up in my career. My career was wrapped up in my marriage. And so I've had to rebuild who I am, both personally and professionally, and as a parent, independently. And I've not always known how to do that or who I am. I got involved in this relationship when I was quite young, before I'd really, knew who I was and what I wanted from the world. So now I am, it's a reset button in a lot of ways, back to that sort of early to mid-20s. I didn't want to end up in another long-term relationship, so I thought I would do 5 by 5. So have 5, let's call them dates, with 5 different people, no more than 5 times each, because I figured 5 was a handful. And that got me back on the horse. And then I stopped sort of after 2 or 3 and thought, actually, this isn't me. I'm not that interested. I like a plan, but I did end up finishing that 5 by 5. And it was a really fascinating experience in terms of learning about me and realizing I still don't know what I want from another person. But what I am learning is what I want from myself when when I have days without my kids. I'm learning what I like. Turns out it's really, simple, lame stuff like sunshine and coffee and tea, and if it's warm enough, walking. So middle-aged. It's phenomenal to have been in a bit of a time warp of a relationship, and you just press pause on yourself, and then to come out and go, well, who am I now? It's hard because I live in a town that is very much, a good place to raise children and family focused and oriented. And I really enjoy my own company and the solitude, but I really don't love parenting alone. I find it really lonely. But I'm learning how to do that too, and learning how to love it. And as my kids get older and, more verbal and more opinionated, the idea of introducing another dynamic into those relationships is just doesn't appeal at all. So it's just how we go and finding how we get our needs met by ourselves and by other types of relationships. I realize I have great capacity to fall in love with the world and enjoy really lovely interactions and high quality connections with people I don't know that well. And then I can go home at the end of the day and enjoy being alone in my kitchen, which is the color that I chose to paint it. So that's been a real gift. Not easy, not every day, but a lot of days I can see it. I can see the gift. It's easier when it's sunny and warm. Thank you for letting me share this, Kamihi. There is something so important about having witnesses in parenting, in life. And that's not always easy to get when you are living in another country away from family. And having, given up another family. I think there's something in that, and I don't know if we call that the immigrant story as well, but who knows. Anyway, thank you for hosting this community, and thank you to everyone who has shared and the little clips that you've put on Instagram, because they have mattered to me. So, thank you.
Hi there, my name's Brianna Lehman. I saw your post about recording our singlehood story on audio and emailing it to you, so figured let's go for it. I was with my high school sweetheart. Oh gosh, I'm 29 now. We broke up about 2 years ago, so do the math. That's over a decade of being together. We were engaged, and it was like a fairy tale, or what I thought a fairy tale would be like. We never fought. We were partners in crime, did everything together. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, in the heat of the pandemic, he struggled with substance abuse, which turned into physical and mental abuse towards me, to the point where I had to move out of our home to keep myself safe. And the whole time he was struggling with his addictions and taking it out on me, I was trying to figure out how could I love him harder, to show him how much I love him, to hopefully use my love for him as a source of change or momentum for him to want to change. So I kept pouring from my cup into his cup, and rarely did I get anything in return. Quite honestly, we postponed our wedding because of, quote unquote, COVID. It was not because of COVID. We postponed it because he was not sober. COVID just gave us an easy excuse. But quite frankly, the COVID-19 pandemic saved my life. Had COVID not happened and had we not postponed our wedding because of COVID, I probably would have married him before I found out how bad his addictions and his abuse would and could get. And how bad his infidelity was. We later broke up because he was having an affair with a woman from a gym we both went to who was married with multiple children. She was staying with him in our house while I stayed with my parents for safety, while I thought he was going to rehab that I was paying for, that was under my Social Security and health insurance because my ex-fiance at the time was trying to get into the military. And if he had substance abuse on his record or rehab on his record, they would have never let him in. So we convinced the counseling service to put it under my name, even though I was not the patient. And I just recently finished paying that off, and that was, back in 2020, early 2021. So it was pretty expensive. And also lost upwards of $15,000 on our canceled wedding. And then a few months ago, so a year and a half after we broke up, I found out his infidelity tracked back 6 or 7 years. I started getting messages from women in a million different states and countries even, whom he had long-term relationships with, not one-night stands or anything like that. These were relationships where he had met their parents, spent holidays with their parents, and he was able to do all of this mostly because of his job as a consultant. He traveled constantly for work, so he would meet women and form relationships with them while all having a double life with me back home. Those are the 4.5 minutes of cliff notes of my life. Basically, my life revolved around this man I considered my best friend. It was the hardest lesson I ever had to learn, that you cannot love someone into loving you. And my love that I have to give is a reflection of my heart and not a reflection of how someone treats me, but can be gated based on how somebody is treating me. So through all of this journey and feeling like I lost over a decade of my life and my memories, and also losing trust in myself, how could I let something like this get so bad with someone I thought I knew for more than half of my life? I have learned to continue to invest in myself first, to find myself now, which has been my core focus. I've been reading your book, Single on Purpose, and let me tell you, it's not an easy journey to be okay, to be with yourself, and it is one I am still trying to figure out. Yes, so including that, I have started going to school. I'm working towards getting my master's in marriage and family therapy because my LMFT therapist quite frankly saved me, and I want to become that for other people. I want to help people heal their wounds and make life a little bit of an easier journey. So anyways, thanks for always sharing some amazing content that always seems to come at the time that I need it most. All my best. Bye.
I hope that episode was helpful. Hey, listen, if you want to share your singlehood journey, if you've gone somewhere and come back, if you have revelations and wisdom, please share your story. It's going to help other people. Nothing makes us feel more connected than hearing other people's stories. So just send me the audio of your story, and you could just record it directly from your phone and email it to theangrytherapist@gmail.com. Also, if you want our Single on Purpose newsletter, go to singleonpurpose.life. That's singleonpurpose.life. You will get tools and articles and other people's stories, and also Zoom links to private gathers. So if you want to join our community, go to singleonpurpose.life. Thank you for listening. Be well. We hope you tell a friend. Hey, before you go, I want to invite you to the Single on Purpose private community online. It's off of social media, no ads, no algorithms. We got forums, we got live groups, we got webinars, and we have social hangs. We also have offline in-person hangs happening soon. So check us out. Go to singleonpurpose.life. That's singleonpurpose.life, and I will see you inside.